being here. Elan, you want to say hi?
Hi.
Okay, let's get we are logging in from Portland, Oregon, from my living room. I'm Rebecca Martinez.
I'm Elan Hagens.
And we are the founders of Fruiting Bodies Collective. Where to start, Elan?
Oh my gosh, where to start? Let's start like how are we together right now doing this? How did we get here? We're doing this. I would say that it started from like just dreaming. And years ago, Becca and I used to have talks and walks as all friends do, because we know each other as friends, not business partners and just people who connected through Instagram. We have been friends organically for quite some time now. And so I've been in the mushroom education business, and I've had a business selling wild edibles for 10 years. And so the talk of mushrooms is not like a full conversation that just happened just because it came on the measure. And so during some of our talks, we've definitely talked about like Aaron walking out front here, like leaving out here and being like, oh my gosh, like what if one day like psilocybin therapy is legal? and it's like, okay, that conversation probably happened starting like 2 to 3 years ago. Fast forward, Becca is like, hello, you're like working with the campaign. And so Becca, are you want to talk about that now, or do you want to talk about that later?
Yeah, we can get into it a little bit because it kind of plays into how we ended up here. So
Yeah.
I had originally had roots in farming and in cannabis farming and hemp. And eventually I just felt called to create space and to I had an ongoing relationship with mushrooms and felt called, as the talk of potential legalization was developing, to get involved. So I ended up getting a job as the event and volunteer coordinator on it was IP 109, now it's known as Measure 109, now that it has passed, and worked on that campaign. And as we were working on the campaign, we realized that people just did not really understand much about psilocybin. And then we saw some studies that showed that the Google searches were just skyrocketing for psilocybin in tandem with awareness of the campaign growing. So we knew it was going to be a big thing. And I remember on and saying, I know that you're all about this too. Will you get some signatures in your community? Like, I know a lot of mycology people, understand the potential benefits of psilocybin. And so that was kind of when we started dreaming of like, part dreaming and part concern, actually, of what is this program going to look like?
Yeah.
Is it going to meet the needs of the community, and is it going to be what people need it to be? And especially as I was advocating for it at the state level, thinking like, I hope and believe that it's going to be what it needs to be, but I also know I'm sticking my neck out. And if I'm advocating for this, I have to be prepared to fight for it on the other side and make sure that those people who we brought in as volunteers and staff and advocates and everyone, 1.2 million people who voted for it, we have to make sure we give them a program that actually serves them. And so today we're going to kind of talk about those things here in a little bit, of our specific aims with Fruiting Bodies Collective and the things we're advocating for within Oregon's psilocybin therapy program. But there's a little more about Fruiting Bodies that I think we should touch on before we get into that.
Yeah, and that's just like our bios and why we have like come together. Like now that we have, that like, hey, we have this background in like working with people and like us being connected with food and being connected with people, which is plants are it's all one thing kind of thing. And so now that you know that, hey, people have came to us, so many people have come to us. And after it was legalized, and we're like, oh my gosh, Becca, Elan, like, what's going on? Like, what's the next step? It's like, oh my gosh, like, there's so much going on. And we were like,
people were so eager. People were, and now especially people are like creating mushroom products. Everyone's like 10 steps ahead of the laws. And that's because the community is so thirsty for these options. And it's hard to tell people, okay, well, it's a 2-year process. But I think you should probably share about the farmers market. That's kind of how we originally connected, was through the farmers market scene. And you've been educating people about mushrooms.
Yeah, I've been educating people about mushrooms, and even just getting through just a normal customer, like, or no, when I say customer, it's like me, I'm selling wild edibles. And even before this measure was passed, it's like people have a mycophobia. And if I, say, hey, do you want to look at this? Some people are like, oh my gosh, is that poisonous? Is that, And so we're like taking this whole step. Not only are we like going into actual like mushrooms as far as like past the food, we're going like getting into people's minds and talking about like the therapy of it. And so that's like a whole different dynamic. And for me, it was definitely hard to want to involve myself in this psychedelic, the psilocybin therapy scene, because it's just been it's just been ruined by so many different types of people. We know who those types of people are. And so it was like, oh my gosh, like this is going to be cannabis scene all over again, where like funky like branding and be like I just the things that we don't want, and that what I definitely don't want and don't want to associate myself with. Like, I'm not part of groups that like support this medicine because I don't trust them, and that's just it. And as a brown person, I definitely don't trust them. And so when Becca and I were like, oh my gosh, we have to come together, it was because we like felt like a calling to like, hey, we need to de-stig. We need to be like there for people who keep coming to us and saying, hey, like, where do we go to learn more? And we love that you are there. I've done, as a person in like the outdoor scene, being Black, people said that to me for years, like, oh, it's so good seeing just your face in this scene. And so we're definitely like doing that, but at a level where this is going to take years and years and years of like work. But
right. Yeah. So to kind of explain what Fruiting Bodies Collective is, first of all, today is our birthday. Today's our launch day. So happy birthday to us!
Our podcast.
We released our first podcast episode today. So you can find that on Spotify if you search Fruiting Bodies. In a nutshell, what Fruiting Bodies is we are an online resource hub for people who want to learn about psychedelics, people who want to be involved with psychedelic therapy, and people in not just Oregon, but around the country and around the world who want to advocate for policy reforms that make psychedelic therapies more accessible. And so within that, we have right now it's mostly on Instagram. You can follow us at Fruiting Bodies Co. Our website is live now, which has a blog. It has links and show notes for all of our podcast episodes. It also has several free downloads, because what we found is that with so many people asking us the same questions, we found that we needed a way to get the information out to the masses. We wish we could talk to everyone one-on-one. It's just we don't have enough hours in the day. And so we created a couple of guides, and we're going to continue publishing. We have free guides that you can download right now. You can download them today on our website. We also have some that you can purchase as well. So our goal is really, as Fruiting Bodies, to educate, to make sure that everyone, not just people within certain subcultures and demographics, but that everyone who wants to learn and stands to benefit feels invited to the conversation and has easy access to easy to understand information about psychedelic therapies. We're also seeking to advocate at a state level, and so we're working closely with the Healing Advocacy Fund and different equity subcommittees to make sure that these policies are equitable. And then our goal too, as you hit on, Elan, to destigmatize, and that really has to do with representation. So within our blog and within our podcast, a big focus is on storytelling and getting people who the general public does not expect to be pro-psychedelics to tell their stories, so that you can see people who look like you, whether it's a pastor or a veteran or a parent or a brown or Black person or a trans person. When people can share their stories and talk about their healing, it invites larger conversation, so that people know it's for them. Because if you're a human who has a life, you have things to work out. And for so many, they're not for everyone, but for so many people, they can really help in your healing path.
Yeah, and it's not only just about like people who are like you're like, oh my gosh, I need healing. It's like people who like are, when we say like we want a community, it's like people who are artists and just people who want to, who not only, maybe people, we're not saying we just want been like tripping. Like we want people to tell us, hey, this is what, when I voted yes, like this is what I dreamed of. This is how I wanted it to impact and like affect my life. And it doesn't mean you have to be somebody who's, you know, seriously ill or has like some diagnosed stuff. Like there's different, this medicine is for a lot of different things. And so that's one of the things is like, we were like, oh my gosh, like, oh my God, we just want everybody to have access to it.
Right.
We don't want people who in the past have had access to it, have been a certain demographic, who have had the privilege of traveling and, you know, and
or
being
privilege of not being worried about the laws if they were to get caught.
Yeah.
As Robin had mentioned on the main stage, you know, a lot of that is racially charged. A lot of it is socioeconomically charged. And so what does it look like to create a program going forward that's bringing in a whole bunch of the community that has never felt that these things, that is a really tall mountain to climb. Yeah, so we're starting at like 101, like what are psychedelics? How do they work in the brain? What is the history of the war on drugs? These are all things people need to understand, because if they can understand how we got here, then they can understand, okay, here's the landscape and what we need to consider going forward.
For sure. They need to have that as a background.
So should we hit on 109 and dive into what's going on in Oregon?
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that. You start out with that.
Okay.
Because she knows about it, because she's on the campaign link stuff. And
I was out there with the microphone. Oh, no, really, I was with the umbrella and a wet signature sheet, but
it's
you gotta pay your dues.
Rain.
So Measure 109, just to clear things up, this is not mushrooms are legal in Oregon. Let's just make that clear right now. What Measure 109 did is it created a self-contained, kind of as Sam described it, Sam Chapman, a bubble. So there's this new program that's being created that is a therapeutic psilocybin program in Oregon. So Measure 109 creates a licensing structure, which basically means in 2 years, in the beginning of 2023, you can apply to get trained as a psilocybin facilitator. You can apply to be a mushroom grower, or you can apply to have a clinic. And the state of Oregon is working for the next 2 years to develop that program. So right now, nothing has changed. That's the biggest misconception, is Measure 109 did not change any existing laws. Contrary to what the media and the press have reported, that's not what it did. It created a therapeutic psilocybin program, which has yet to be rolled out. So we have all sorts of details about that. You can download like a 6-page PDF on fruitingbodiescollective.com, or if you know you want to be involved in that space in the coming years, I highly recommend you purchase the in-depth guide. It's like 30 pages. It basically summarizes the 80-page measure. And we'll hit on a couple of the bullet points here. But if you want that, it's great for your team. It's on sale this week with our launch.
Yeah, it's just good to know these different things as like we've been like approached by so many different people who are people in our community members. We've noticed that, hey, oh my gosh, so people are actually misinformed or maybe didn't read some things, and that was definitely like the legalization thing. So one of the things that we've noticed is, Becca was saying, people are coming to us. There's a lot of product-driven stuff, and there's a lot of people right now offering kits and things for sale because they are following the act or law, if you want to put it, and that's 12 grams. And so with that being said, even if you have point whatever, it's still a possibility to still get in trouble for possession and still get in trouble for the possibility of distribution.
Right.
And so that's a big thing we want. And then we're not saying, hey, the underground scene is like not, the underground scene has, obviously, that's why we're here. I think that's why we're here. But we want people to also be aware of that. Like, if you, let's just say I was thinking about this last night, and I was like, maybe if I was like in my early 20s and I had a bunch of roommates who I didn't trust, and they're sketch, what if one be growing mushrooms in my house, and then one day the cops came in and busted down and searched everything, and I was just growing medicine, like that could get somebody in trouble really easily, accidentally, with a kit that they don't know is fruiting like a pound, like
right.
like,
yeah. So that touches on how important it is. Part of education is advocacy, which saying we don't believe these things should be illegal, and here's what we're doing to work towards that, and also making sure that today, right now, people understand the laws so that you can be smart, make informed decisions, be safe. We don't want to get the cart before the horse, and we don't want people to be reckless, because jail time is real, and the last thing that this movement needs is people to be suffering in cages because they got ahead, or they were careless, or they made an Instagram page and started selling mushroom gummies. Let's just be smart. We have to move slower than we want now. It's unfortunate truth. And at the same time, I think there is some beauty in being intentional and being really smart about how we go forward. So with that, what Measure 109 does is creates a licensing program. In that licensing program, if you become a facilitator, you do not have to work at just one clinic. You can kind of contract out with other clinics. Allow for the licensing of a mobile premise, so you couldn't have like a pop-up tent at a festival or something. You have to be a brick and mortar facility. It also prevents the distribution of mushrooms outside of the state of Oregon. One interesting thing that we're going to touch on when we get into equitable licensing is this program does not require facilitators to be licensed therapists or right now, the baseline that's written into law as it stands is, and this needs a caveat, as it stands, you need to be a high school graduate, you need to have a high school diploma or a GED, basically. However, there is a new training program being developed, and this will not be like a 6-week online quick training certification. This is going to be an in-depth state-sanctioned kind of new training and licensing program. There are some really awesome professionals who are working with the state to help develop that. Some of them I have connected with personally, and I know that they do really good work. And also, we will see what's within the baseline training.
Yeah, and what besides a high school diploma, maybe criminal stuff, like if you have a record, or not saying that's like a thing that we've talked about with people, but there might be some things, because this is about also harm reduction. Facilitating are going to be safe, and that they're not going to just be anybody. I mean, I'm not saying not anybody can have it, but we would want to make sure, and I'm sure the state of Oregon wants to make sure that we have the right people. And that's part of and that's part of the community too, because if somebody is like, we're going to find out.
There's accountability. We want structures for accountability.
We're going to talk, and so that's what's great.
And part of our goal at Fruiting Bodies with our newsletter and our blog is to make sure that we're in touch up the ladder with different organizations and groups that are developing the program. And our goal is kind of to like take that, kind of see us doing this. Like, we're going to keep spreading it, and we rely heavily on word of mouth and on people passing things along, because we need the public to be informed. There's going to be public comment periods. There's going to be subcommittees that are developed. We need people to be engaged throughout the process, and we also want to be able to send updates as they come out, so that in 2 years, there's a public that not only understands psilocybin therapy, ethics around it, the indigenous history. Oh, there's these 5 books we suggest, everyone has read them, people understand, and then the program is like ready to hit the ground running, because there are people who need this treatment soon. So that said, let's hit on some of the things that we're advocating for within this program that still remain to be decided, that we think would help create a more equitable and inclusive psilocybin therapy program. So I'll hit on the first one. The first one we kind of touched on already is equity and licensing. And part of this is influenced by what we saw in the cannabis industry, which was really, if the state is not proactive coming out of the gate to create outreach and create opportunities for BIPOC applicants to get involved in the scene, we'll end up in the same position as cannabis, where we kind of are trying to work backwards when the space is really saturated, the businesses are saturated. As you said, there's kind of one culture around it. And once the culture is created around it, a lot of people who who could really, really thrive in a business or as members of these like industries don't feel that it's for them.
Yeah, and it's not recreational. That's the part of the reason why this is that 109 passed, was because we're saying, hey, this is not recreational. This is a therapeutic program.
You won't be able to go into a dispensary and buy some mushrooms and take them home. This will be administered at a clinic with a facilitator. They'll sign off when you've come down after 6 or however many hours, and when you're good to go, they'll offer you an integration session afterwards, and they'll be required to offer a preparation session before the day of the actual administration of mushrooms. And so if we can, whatever we can manage at the state level is going to take the burden off companies like Fruiting Bodies and other organizations that are trying to work at the ground level with empowering people to roll out this program. We want these things just written into the program. So equity and licensing from day one, whether that means weighted licensing or a lottery or how we do outreach and who gets notified. There's many ways to do it, but number one is equity and licensing.
Yeah.
For BIPOC.
And so it would be like, hey, like, say in Oregon, 1,000 people apply for licenses, and they obviously would want the state to give preference and hopefully a way for like some subsidies to be able to pay for licensing too for BIPOC. So we would want the state to make that a priority before everybody else is awarded or given their licenses.
Yeah,
like that'd be ideal for us.
Yeah,
I mean, especially since in Oregon in general, and like the history here in Oregon, and having already a small section, just not many minorities.
Yeah.
So it's like,
is Oregon like 6%?
It's something, yeah. And so it's like, you need to work a little harder to elevate us here. So
one promising thing I saw in the application for the Psilocybin Advisory Board, which has not been announced, it will be announced within the next couple of weeks, is one of the first questions they had in the application was like, what are you doing and what have you done to promote the advancement of the Black communities in Oregon? And it just showed such a marked difference at the state level. It surprised me. It was a great surprise, but knowing that, okay, they know they need to right the wrongs of the past. Oregon has a terribly racist. So hopefully this can be a new era and a new program that creates opportunities in ways that cannabis and others haven't.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about affordability? Since you kind of started to touch on that.
And then with affordability, one of the things that ultimately we would like, besides like obviously donations, and or not just saying for us personally, but we to support the BIPOC community, we need to set up services. We need to set up foundations and have people and ways that are putting directly into services, free services for the community, marginalized communities who need it the most. And whether it be, say in 2 years from now, the community is like, hey, Fruiting Bodies, we really want you to apply for a clinic, and this is what we want out of it. And one of the things was, hey, we would love for you guys to do a sliding scale where one member is paying double, and that's enough to pay for another member. Mm-hmm. And that's just like one of the many ways. And then like also offering that, we could offer all the free stuff in the world, but education, and we're gonna all, I think, say this as a community and just as people, like education is so huge to get the Black community and get the brown community to be able to even be notified that this is available and that it's something that could progress you. Like, you know, I just think, I don't know, I talked about it with like food, being in the food scene, how I know there's many food programs out where there's hundreds of dollars of free food, but people still don't get it. They're not at the end of the year. Sometimes there's a whole bunch of money left because just the education hasn't been there, or
and
people
there
have
was
gone
a
out.
Proactive outreach, and if you don't have ambassadors, people like you, Elan, who are representing the community and saying, hey, I understand your lived experience, let me tell you my story, and also let me offer you these resources so that you know and can learn in a culturally relevant way, so that you don't feel like this is psychedelics are for white people and they're trying to pull me into their psychedelic society
Yeah.
where I'm not going to
Like
be
it's
around
another white person.
people.
I'll hear another white person telling me how they're going to
Giving
help
me-
me and let me lift you up and
Yeah.
you know, and which I love it. Yeah, I love being lifted. I've been lifted up by so many white people. I love you guys, but it's very important to definitely once again de-stig and have it in a different type of way and different type of people and for so many communities, not just so many different communities.
Right. Yeah. So you hit on affordability. So if at the state level, if Oregon would incentivize sliding scale and sponsorship type models or certified B Corporation type clinics, the more that the state can do that, the more of a it takes off our shoulders for us to create a foundation or a fund. And we are interested in doing that kind of thing, but there are 3 million people just in Oregon, let alone all the people who are going to be coming here. We need larger programs to make this radically affordable. Not, oh, it's only $1,000, but, oh, you have a need-based person here. Okay, well, let's just sign you off on the fund and we'll send the bill to Oregon or to this organization and we'll get you what you need.
Yeah.
You touched on education and outreach and destigmatization. That's not only into different racial groups, but also into different socioeconomic groups.
For sure.
Can we provide really high quality educational materials in public health clinics and in libraries and places where normal community members are spending time? We need outreach programs that make sure that the information isn't existing only in these echo chambers where if you know, you know, and if not, you've never heard about it because it doesn't.
You don't know.
It is.
Yeah, nobody. Yeah, I would say still to this day, like anybody who I'm talking to, like they don't know terms, psychonauts, and all of these terms. Like it doesn't exist. You don't know. It's just like, hey, you don't know the joy of the outdoors if you've never been shown like a really nice hike where you're prepared for. You're not craving it or yearning it. And so I'm not saying it's a craving or a yearning kind of thing, but it's something like that's how I kind of compare it to. Like gotta be like shown that. And so that's just also like when it comes to like affordability, it's like, okay, there's gonna be different people who need translations, people who are going to need Braille. There's going to be so many different
in terms of accessibility. We need these materials and these educational programs to be translated and to have facilitators trained who understand therapy and can train within their communities. We need accessibility. So what are we going to do for the hard of hearing community and for the blind community and other communities that need certain accommodations to access these things? So those are things that we will always be advocating for. And then the last one, which may kind of seem different than these others, but I think it's so important, is to have an option of group therapy. And we don't know yet, it's not written in the bill one way or another, whether this will
allow group therapy,
but we're advocating for it and it's been talked about. And
because the benefits have been studied and are out there for group therapy, but it just has to be about implementing it, safety, and so many different aspects of it.
If you think of the potential of group healing with affinity spaces, so if you want to have a group that, say, serves people who have been incarcerated, and you can have a group, especially if you can work with other mental health practitioners. So there's programs going on, not just in psilocybin therapy, but
around it. But around it. Palliative care.
If you can have services leading up to these sessions and integration sessions, that is so essential, and those need to be affordable
as well.
That is why we're really calling on mental health professionals and other health practitioners to get involved with the Fruiting Bodies community. We're going to have a website where we have private groups and people can get in and talk and strategize with others within their field, because we can't just, Madeline says integration sessions are so important. We can't just have a really great equitable psilocybin therapy program within a medical system that does not serve people. And so this is going to there is a sort of tension because this is not a panacea, and we understand that psilocybin is one small piece of whole person health. And so how do we create pressure within the medical system to create whole person healthcare that is accessible too. And so if we can, even in mental health care, if we can start creating a model that has ripples out into other industries where they can see, oh, when we do better for the community, our whole community thrives and we all do better. I hope that this program can create a new model that really demonstrates that it's financially viable and that it is more just and serves more people.
Yeah, and connects people with each other. I mean, that's just the gist of it. It's like we just want to support everybody, and that's why we're here, because we're like, oh my gosh, there's so many pieces of this puzzle.
Yes, yeah, and so we're looking to collaborate with, not just mental health professionals and other health professionals. We're looking to bring on activists, people from different affinity groups who can help admin our online community. If you're Black or Indigenous or a person of color, or if you're queer or gender nonconforming, we want to have you involved. We're looking for people to get lined up for later this year to come on our podcasts. I'm looking for guest bloggers. So if you're a writer who's passionate about these things, one of our blog posts is collecting a list of like 20 different topics I want to have people write about. So
100 different topics, not 20.
Yeah.
Like send us stuff.
Each one is like a world in itself.
Yeah, because Becca's a great writer and she has all these, that's like her dream is just to write. So and because of that, she like loves, supporting other writers. Like that's like a passion of hers. And so she like sends your stuff to us, but we go to Becca because that's her area of expertise. And so that would be we would definitely love that. Like, so if you have something to get out, get it out. And I saw somebody mention earlier just a go about them going through some therapy now on a microdosing therapy, and I want to say blessings, good luck with everything. You've been putting some really nice comments on here for us, so I just wanted to acknowledge that and say, not like saying, oh, this is for sale, but there's information on microdosing within that's one of the first pieces of information we really actually wanted to touch on, because the biggest thing that we were getting hit with was the microdosing movement. And so
it is a common entry point for people, because the stereotype around mushrooms and journeying or tripping can be intimidating, but people are hearing more and more about microdosing. So the downloads are even just get the free one.
Yeah.
It has important things. It's not just here's how to microdose. It's like here's what you need to know about drug interactions, how this works in the brain, reasons not to, reported benefits and potential side effects, all those kind of things. And we'll be producing other content like that. But if I could just emphasize fruiting bodies, people keep handing it to us and saying, that's so cool, you two are making these huge waves. And we keep taking it and handing it back. And saying, like, this is only going to happen and be amazing if it's a community effort at large. Our goal is to grow this community to 100,000 people in 2 years.
Yeah, just spread it.
Everyone everyone that they know, and just like mycelium will just spread that way. Because if we can just be here organizing and connecting and saying, oh, you should connect with this person, and oh, you have this cool project, how do we support you? And then say, hey, community, this person's doing a fundraiser for this clinic or this licensing thing or this new development. We want it to be a hub where you come connect with each other, and we want to make 100,000 new friends too.
And the new friends that we make, they're like, it doesn't have to be Oregon friends, because we're not the first. We're just an example for the entire world. So maybe next year there's 4 other states who are going to be going through exactly what we are going through right now. And so that's one thing we want to emphasize is like, hey, this isn't just a state thing. This is something, tools that eventually, who knows, maybe all 51, 50, who knows,
lot's gonna happen in our lifetime.
A lot could happen in our lifetime. And so that's why we want to set it down. And I did see somebody talk about how we would like to talk about the ancient practices and use of plant medicine to heal, and that's a passion of ours. That's up our alley, and we will be definitely going over that and the roots of that and where this came from, and all over the world the different uses of psilocybin, it's not just North America. So that's one of the things I know people are interested in just learning about.
Yeah.
So if you have information, if you've done studies on this topic,
come talk with us.
Yeah,
contribute. We want to amplify. Okay, so we have about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So we will leave you all with a couple action items. The first one is super easy. Just follow us on Instagram.
Yeah.
It's at Fruiting Bodies Co. We put stuff out all the time. And please help us by saving, sharing, commenting, all of those things. What I would be really excited to invite you all to do is come listen to the first podcast. I interviewed Elan, and so we kind of got Elan's backstory. It's an hour well spent. It's on Spotify, or you can find the link on our website. It's on our Instagram. It's easy to find. And then tomorrow, as part of our lunch, we're releasing episode 2.
Yeah, where I'm interviewing Becca. So you get to find out about a little bit more about Becca than what you learned out about, except for besides what you learned about us today. And so that's gonna be nice because it's more in depth, and we just wanted to get those 2 out. And so the rest of you guys shine afterwards, Yeah.
And then just come join our website and kind of spend some time, peek around, download what's useful for you, email it to some friends. There's a ton of information, and we want to get people involved. We haven't mentioned this, but as a part of our launch, we're doing a mega fundraiser. It's not cheap to do this work. And so over the course of the spring, we're looking to raise $20,000. So right now there's options to purchase things on our website, to our Venmo handle, our Instagram. You can make a donation. If you're connected with companies or high-level donors, please connect them with us. All of that and more you can find on fruitingbodiescollective.com. And hopefully this has been useful for you. We're so thankful to the Tokeativity community. Oh my gosh, they have been so instrumental from years past in destigmatizing and creating spaces for women and for events like these to happen. So thank you, Tokeativity, Sam, Lisa, the whole team. We love you guys.
Yeah.
I'm sure this is the first time.
Here's a question that is being asked. If we are a nonprofit, and we are not a nonprofit. We definitely talked about that because we know there's going to be nonprofits out there in this space, but we are a registered LLC, so you can still make a tax-exempt gift to Fruiting Bodies Collective. It's accounted for a little differently, but we are looking to, in a couple years, become a registered B or certified B corporation. So we consider ourselves a mission-based business. So
I
don't know if there's any other time.
It's the healing we as a culture need. Totally agree.
Totally.
All right. Well, we are going to hop back on and listen to some of the other speakers. Thank you all so much for joining us, and we will be in touch.
For sure.